How's it going, everyone? What of course you'll be seeing today is a review and breakdown of the exotic hand cannon in Destiny called The Last Word. You can get this weapon a multitude of ways, including Nightfalls, Legendary Engrams, Vanguard or Crucible rewards, the Vaulted Glass or Crota's End raid, or the last way in which I got mine was actually through one of the times that Zur sold it, and I think he sold it as recently as about a month ago. Don't quote me on that, and that's when I got my 302 version. I previously had one of the 300 versions before. The gun itself starts with a 302 base damage and increases to a max of 331 when you're done with the upgrades. You're going to need at the very least Glimmer, weapon parts, and an exotic shard. The other form of planetary material may differ between yours and my weapon, so that's why I'm not giving a definitive for one you need. The fire rate's 32%, it has an impact rating of 68%, a range of 14%, stability rating of 31, reload percentage of 56, and a magazine size of 8. So compared, at least on preliminary stats minus the perks analysis, when compared to the harder hitting, slower fire rate options like Hawkmoon, this one hits less hard, but at a much faster fire rate, and it has multiple perks that will buff that fire rate, and I'll explain that shortly. You'll have lesser range with this overall weapon because it's only 14, so short to medium range combat should be emphasized. In terms of PvP damage output, this weapon hits for 59 for now on body shots and 73 on headshots while aiming down the sight, unless of course this changes through patch. It hits for 96 on headshots when firing from the hip, due to a perk called, of course, The Last Word, granting bonus damage and stability through hip fire, and I'll break this down more shortly. With regard to the skill tree, all last words are exactly the same because they're all exotics. The Last Word contains a perk called Fan Fire, where the weapon can be fired continuously and quickly. You have three clear options in terms of ballistics. Soft ballistics, which reduces recoil but cuts down your impact. Smart drift control, which produces predictable and controllable recoil, but it also cuts down range. And aggressive ballistics, which produces more recoil but makes it more controllable, and it actually enhances impact. But of course the downside, the double-edged sword to it, it actually cuts down range again. Personally, I tend to prefer soft ballistics, though I know many people who play PvP will probably bang the table to go for aggressive ballistics. But any ballistics I find that increases the predictability and recoil, I feel is the best way, because then you build habitual habits and familiarity with the weapon, and then your skill comes to shine from the above mentioned. So that's my choice, but I will, as a disclaimer, say that I haven't experimented much with aggressive ballistics, but I know a lot of people really prefer it. I've had success with the first one, soft ballistic, so maybe I'll do more experimentation on that. With regard to the skill tree, the first perk is called Hip Fire, which of course increases accuracy when firing from the hip. The next three perks which you'll have a choice over are Single Point Sling, which allows for faster weapon switching and allow you to move quicker while aiming down the sights. Higher Caliber Rounds, which cause enemies to flinch when hit by rounds. And Perfect Balance, which allows the weapon to have lower recoil. I personally choose Perfect Balance because this weapon, in its high fire rate versus high recoil, can be completely, well, almost neutralized with this perk. But Single Point Sling might be actually a better choice in terms of close quarters, high-paced combat. The last perk, of course, mentioned is called The Last Word, and actually allows for extra precision damage when firing from the hip and buffs stability. Lastly, the Fanfare perk not only comes with full auto fire mode, but it increases fire rate by about 30%. So this weapon, as emphasized, fires extraordinarily quick, and with an 8-round magazine, though it's manageable, it's not spectacular for the fire rate. That last bit that I just mentioned about the 30% increase is actually a hidden perk for this exotic weapon, because a lot of exotics have hidden perks. With regard to my overall impressions, in PvE, this is a good but not great weapon. It can manage through most content using this a slow fire rate aiming down the sight method instead of utilizing the multiple perks worth of strengths and hip fire. But against enemies with overshield, because it only deals kinetic damage such as the Nightfalls or when you go to certain raids or against bosses, you're better off using an elemental weapon or a weapon with better range so that you minimize encounters where enemies have either light switch perk enabled or you're in a close quarters melee-esque combat. The last detriment against it is the fact that it uses an exotic slot, so you can't use something like Icebreaker or Galahorn. And so to me personally, I wouldn't call this a very good option in terms of PvE content, and I definitely look elsewhere. But But if you're the type that does maximize fun factor over, like, you know, maximum utility and DPS output, go nuts. That's fine. Enjoy it. In terms of PvP, though, this is one of the best hand cannons around. The fast fire rate mixed with a damage model of a hand cannon makes it an extremely high DPS weapon. Hipfires, which should be emphasized in short to medium range combat, because the perks, of course, like I said earlier, bolster hipfire, and the range, considering that it is the weakness of the weapon. Anything beyond medium range will get you into trouble, especially matched up against scout rifles. But if you pair this weapon in short range with a shotgun and build agility, you're in business. So overall, I'd rate this as a truly great PvP option, but actually a very average PvE content weapon. Use it in short to medium range, pair it with a shotgun, and enjoy the carnage you're going to unleash, but just don't do it in Nightfalls. Have a good one.